David Fincher has a great eye for detail, an obsessive desire that often lies inside great directors. One can't overstate how carefully he orchestrates every facet of the film once the script is written. And even though he's not the writer, one might look at his filmography and be surprised by this, because he clearly has a very cohesive oeuvre, recurring themes that inhabit most, if not all, of his films. The dark yet entirely real side of human nature, the better devils of our humanity. Fincher once explained his philosophy thusly.
I think people are perverts. I've maintained that. That's the foundation of my career.
With that said, one might think that these filthy, vile movies are salacious and full of lost souls, but many of his films also contain something that I believe is frequently ignored by film critics who paint Fincher as a nihilist or a sadist. His films often contain hope in the face of darkness. I'll tell you why I think that later, at least as it pertains to our film today. But first, a short synopsis of Seven, to bring us up to speed. Seven is the story of Mills and Somerset, two detectives. The former is young and has just been transferred, and the latter is much older and wants to retire. They encounter a serial killer who murders people in accordance with the 7 deadly sins. After a game of cat and mouse, the killer, John Doe, unexpectedly surrenders.
Detective!
You're looking for me.
Under the pretense of finding new bodies, Doe reveals that he killed Mills's wife, Tracy. Doe wants Mills to murder him so that the detective can commit the final deadly sin, wrath. Mills murders Doe, and the movie ends with Somerset's future uncertain. Fincher comes from the world of music videos, and perhaps because of this, he is uniquely qualified to present narrative without dialogue. When we're first introduced to Somerset, the scene happens without a word, but we learn everything we need to know about him. As he approaches, a chessboard in the foreground comes into focus. Intelligence. We get a close-up of his belongings that explain who he is. Badge, detective. Pen, studious. Switchblade, just in case. Lack of trust in the world, but also a tool. The visual art of Seven lends a kind of beauty to this dark tale. When Somerset and Mills find Doe's home, the camera shots are close in to give the audience a claustrophobic feel of the tight corners of his home. The camera in Seven glides along dollies and cranes, perfecting each shot, like this one revealing a corpse, and this one introducing the characters, and this one following Somerset's research into the 7 deadly sins. Only during scenes of chaos, in order to throw off the audience, does the camera become handheld, adding to the suspense. Early in the film, Somerset remarks that he's surprised Mills fought to be reassigned here, but where is here? Throughout the course of the film, nobody explicitly says which city they inhabit. It's not an oversight, it's intentional. The constant rain might put the audience in mind of Seattle. The traffic, New York. The middle of nowhere just outside the city, God knows where. It was shot in Los Angeles because, well, it had to be shot somewhere, but the specific shots of the city's architecture suggest the East Coast. So why is this important? Because this is not a story about what's happening somewhere, it's a story about what's happening to our world. Notice that it's too dark to see the size of the police cars that might identify which department we're seeing. It makes what's happening in the film more nebulous. This city, as it is only called, is really ourselves.
I don't think I'm the one to talk to about this.
I hate this city.
I just don't think I can continue to live in a place that embraces and nurtures apathy as if it was a virtue.
The city is a stand-in for the totality of the world. There's a sense of helplessness as it pertains to the murders. When Mills and Somerset find the victims, the alleged sinners of gluttony and greed and everything else, we are always seeing the aftermath. The audience never witnesses the murders. The detectives are always too late. Witnessing the murders is about coming to grips with what's happened, not participating in it. We don't even see Tracy die, and she's a major character. The only person we see die in the film is John Doe. There's a prevailing attitude of nameless deaths in Seven. The victims of John Doe have names, but we really only remember their sin name. Mills tells Somerset that he once saw an officer shot and killed early in his career. It stuck with him, but he can't remember the officer's name. And of course, John Doe is John Doe, the title given to someone with no name. It's as if names don't matter. The name of the city, the name of the killer, the name of the dead police officer, the names of victims. Nothing. Nobody. There is a facelessness to all of this, an impersonal, distanced loss of contact with humanity. It doesn't jump out at you, but once you notice this, it's heartbreaking. The 7 deadly sins are technically not in the Holy Bible, but some aspects of the cardinal sins that predate that solidified list can be found in the book of Proverbs in the Old Testament, which says, "These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him, a proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among brethren." There is a long list of sins in Galatians in the New Testament, which includes some of what we now call the 7 deadly sins, but it also includes things like drunkenness and sorcery. The codified list, in modern day and in the film, derives from multiple sources, like a 4th century monk and a pope, and then popularized by the Divine Comedy. There is significantly more to it than that, and I realize this, but we need to focus on how this relates to the film. Towards the end of 7, John Doe is led out into the middle of nowhere by Mills and Somerset. While in the car, they debate Doe's true motives. Doe claims he was chosen to punish sinners, justifying his actions as sanctioned by God. Somerset pokes holes in Doe's claim, suggesting the killer wanted to do this for his own selfish and sadistic reasons. We are seeing a man who claims to work for God arrested and led around by 2 detectives. In other words, we are seeing the difference between divine justice and secular justice. The former is a penance or judgment approbated by God, and the latter is a system of laws. Besides the obvious difference, there is another. If one believes in divine justice, then one also believes in absolutes, a system of good and evil ordained by God. If one is more concerned with secular justice, then one believes in laws codified by humanity, with oversight by other related institutions. The film suggests that if pushed, men who are granted their powers of a more secular justice will exact a more absolute justice. Mills, pushed over the edge by the death of his wife, murders John Doe. What's fascinating about those who justify violent actions as being sanctioned by God is that virtually every theistic faith has some passage condemning this. Notably, Romans 12:19. "Never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. For it is written, Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord."
If you were chosen, that is, by a higher power, it seems strange to me that you would get such enjoyment out of it.
One might take the charge that 7 portrays a dim view of religion, but I would argue that it only condemns zealotry. John Doe is an outlier. His beliefs are uncommon, not the norm. He is a false representative of divine justice. Earlier in the film, Somerset tells Mills that he, much like Doe, has seen too much of society's decay, but his reaction to this is not violence. There is a line at the end that I always felt encapsulated the themes of the film.
Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part.
Now, some have taken this pessimistically, as a condemnation of humanity, but that's missing the point. Somerset recognizes the ugliness and the hatred and the madness in this world, but he still believes it's worth saving. That's not cynicism. That's realism mixed with optimism. Going back to what I said at the beginning about Fincher and his dark films, it is here that they show their sense of hope. If you believe the world is wonderful and that it's worth saving for that reason, that doesn't really take much of a leap of faith, but it takes a level of commitment to see the world as harsh and sometimes cruel, but not give up. John Doe gave up. Even Mills gave up in the end. 7 is a film about not giving up on humanity, seeing the world as possibly being a bad place, but that it's still worth fighting for.